This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for attending this month's webinar. In the United States right now, it is Indigenous Peoples Month, in which we celebrate the heritage of the Native American population. So in honor of that, we wanted to host a webinar covering researching Indigenous peoples of the Americas for you all. Now, researching the indigenous peoples of the Americas might not be exactly what it is that you or your patrons are looking to do, but there are indigenous populations all around the world that face the same struggles, the same opportunities, and somewhat of the same histories as those native peoples within the United States. So what I wanted to do today is, when we walk through the webinar and walk through the different databases, I want you to kind of think about how the material that I'm showing you could be relevant to maybe the native populations where you are and where you live. So first, let's talk about, we're going to go through those slides a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the database and what we're going to talk about today in a little bit more depth, and then we'll jump into HeinOnline itself. So let me just go over here. So, of course, meet your HeinOnline experts. My name is Tim Hoagie. I am the Senior Director of Sales for HeinOnline. I am joined today by Steve Roses, who's the Director of Sales. And of course, we also have Roxanne Marmion, who you may have seen in previous months hosting some of these very similar webinars. Today, we're going to give you a brief introduction to HeinOnline, talk a little bit more about researching Indigenous peoples of the Americas and around the world, and then we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. If you do have questions throughout the webinar, Steve is monitoring the chat and the questions, so feel free to throw those into the chat or the questions box, and Steve will do his best to answer them for you. So let's talk a real quick overview of HeinOnline's Indigenous Peoples of the Americas. It's more than 4,000 titles within the database alone, and it covers over 2.3 million pages of content. Within that archive, we've got treaties, publications related to treaties, tribal codes, constitutions, so those are tribal constitutions, legislative histories regarding federal level legislation that covers Native peoples and Indigenous peoples, federal cases regarding Indigenous peoples, of course, government reports, scholarly works, and all of what is Title 25, which is both the regulations, the U.S. federal regulations and U.S. law covering the Native Americans. And we are currently offering a 15% discount on this database until the end of the year. So what are the tools and features within this particular database? We have the Indigenous Peoples Treaties, over 418 of them. 416 of them include full text coverage. You can browse and search them just like any other material that you have access to within HeinOnline. Of course, the Indian tribal codes, tens of thousands of pages of tribal codes. We analyze trends in coverage, enactments, and amendments. And then we have over 25 serials that are related specifically to Indigenous and Native American topics, of course, including the Indian Law Reporter and other essential titles. So, as we do for all of our new databases and many of our databases that are in existence going backwards, we put together a little guide. I will go into more detail as we enter into the website, but we have an Indigenous Peoples of the Americas guide. It's got a tremendous amount of material within it. It covers all the different topics that I just covered in brief, as well as having a video that covers the database in quite good detail. So, of course, if you don't subscribe to HeinOnline, we offer trials. We have IP authentication with proxy authentication. A core subscription offers you access to over 30 academic databases. Our support is unparalleled in terms of live chat and phone support. And of course, just like this, we offer free training resources whenever you need it. So if you need help, if you are a subscriber, you have questions, always please feel free to give us a call. You can email us, and of course, you can contact us via the website. And if you are not already following us on social media, we are on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the newest one, TikTok. So please make sure you jump on and follow us on TikTok. And that's it. So I'm going to stop my share real quick. I'm going to switch over to the website. Just one moment. All right. Start my share here. Okay, so everyone should be seeing the HeinOnline welcome screen. If you're not familiar with HeinOnline, this is where you land when you first log into the database. The package that I am currently set up with right now is our core package. So it's got all of our law journals, all of our social justice suite materials within it, and some other government-related materials. But you can also see here we have Indigenous Peoples of the Americas, History, Culture, and Law listed right here. If I click on that, that's going to open up and show us all the subheadings and all the subcategories that are included within that particular database. Before we jump into that database, I do want to talk about some of the different search features and some of the search options and show you some examples of what you can do to find material, not only within this particular database, but also across any other material that you may have access to within HeinOnline. So of course, what we're going to start with first is our search box that is found across the top of the screen wherever you go within HeinOnline. It defaults to searching all databases. From here, if you want, you can limit it to specific databases if you wanted to, just by clicking this box and selecting those databases. But in this case, we're going to start at just searching across everything. So, you know, what we want to think about, and what I kind of opened with, is Native and Indigenous populations across the world face many of similar issues, similar challenges. According to Amnesty International, you know, you're seeing illiteracy, poverty, obesity, land loss. The list goes on, and it's happening around the world. So what you can do within HeinOnline is search for that sort of those topics and find them, not, like I said, not only within the Indigenous Peoples of the Americas database, but across the law journals as well. So let's look, for example, we want to find Indigenous or Native. Now, we'll talk about what I'm doing here in just a moment. And literacy. Now, what am I doing here? I'm doing a kind of a fancy Boolean search where I'm putting in Indigenous or Native and literacy. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to show you that HeinOnline does work with Boolean searching, but there's other ways that if you aren't familiar with Boolean searching, or maybe, and likely, your patrons are not familiar with Boolean searching, what do you do to combat that? Well, we have other features, and we're going to jump into those features in just a moment. But first, what I'm going to do, I want to show you, right now we're going to just search for these topics that I put into the search box. Just search for means I'm searching just the full text within HeinOnline. If we want, we can search by author, article title, citations of an article, or if we're interested in knowing what titles, what publication titles we have in HeinOnline, I can search within the catalog. But in this case, we're going to search just the text across everything we have access to. Okay, so with that, we have gotten over 60,000 results searching within all of the material we have access to. Now, if we want, we can refine those results quite a bit, because 60,000 is a lot. So if we, right here, you can see, maybe I'm interested in just material from 2016 to date. I can limit it that, and I can cut out, what, 44,000, or I'm sorry, 54,000 articles right there, just by limiting it to the 2016 to date. We can also say, maybe I'm just interested in material from the journals database, Pathfinder subjects, which I will show you in a moment. We have an Indigenous people specific Pathfinder searching. And of course, we can look for different section types and availability and so on. Just one moment. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll jump into this one, toward a pedagogy of ethic law and lawyering for Indigenous peoples. So what I wanted to do is just show you how HeinOnline works real quick, and then we'll jump into some other search examples. So looking at the specific article, you can see toward pedagogy of ethics of law, lawyering for Indigenous peoples. If we want, we can download that as a PDF. We can just click that button right here and download that PDF. Over here on the left-hand side of the screen, we can see where that falls within the entire content within the North Dakota Law Review. We can see here that this particular article has been cited by 24 other articles within HeinOnline. If we want to see what those articles are, we just click on that link right there, and that's going to pop up and show us all those 24 articles that have cited to this specific article. Citing, if we want to know all the different ways that we can cite this article, get the actual citation for it, we have it in Blue Book, APA, MLA, McGill, and so on. Of course, you can send an email link to anyone in the world right from within this database, right from this button. Anyone in the world that doesn't necessarily have to have access to HeinOnline. So if you wanted to share this article for up to 7 days, or just share a link to this article, you can do that here. Of course, our permalinks, searching within the specific article is easily done here. We can page forward, page back, and of course, jump to specific articles. Specific pages. Now let's say, I did jump to the next page. So let's say we really like this article. This article is on point for the material that we're looking to find, but we want more articles that are similar to looking for pedagogy of and ethics of law and lawyering with Indigenous peoples. Well, I can click this More Like This button. What does More Like This do? More Like This is in real time. It is examining this article, the text within this article, and it's finding other articles that are similar to this article based on the text relevancy and several other factors. It's an artificial intelligence-based system that works very well. So some of the interesting words that this system has pulled out here for us is Indian, Belafonte, Pueblo, Harry Belafonte. I mean, who doesn't love Harry Belafonte? Mexico, and Harry. Now, would I have ever in a million years guessed that Harry Belafonte would show up in this particular article, let alone it being a factor in determining what other similar articles are like? I would have never guessed that. Genuinely, that just happened. But what this system is doing for me is it's finding those interesting terms that me, you, your patrons would have never thought of in the first place. And that's the beauty of the More Like This tool. Now we can refine it. So you can see here, these little blue circles are actually a scale. So we can say maybe the term, maybe Harry Belafonte wasn't real high on the hierarchy of what I was looking to perform a search on. So I can lower the weight of Harry Belafonte. If I wanted to remove that term altogether, I could do that. But what you're seeing here is the system has come up and said these terms were important and relevant in that initial article we looked at, and they are also important and relevant in these articles. So this is a way you can find more articles that are similar to that first article. So what are we looking at? The radical theory of Dolores Hood and Harry Belafonte, globalization, Black identities, and U.S. Caribbean encounters. So here again, that's another Indigenous level that many people don't think of, just outside of the United States, and so on, in pursuit of democracy, and it goes on and on. So this is just one other search feature that we have within HeinOnline. Now let's talk about some more search features. So I'm going to jump in here to the search, and we're going to show the Venn diagram search. So let's say I want to, we had a question yesterday. Close this up one moment. Just let me get back into a main, just want to go to the main answer. Sorry about that. Sometimes in order to get where we're going. So we did a similar webinar for this same topic yesterday, and we had some interesting questions. And one of them was, how do we manage dealing with a disparate terminology for the same topic? And what I mean by that is, how do we manage if some articles are referring to indigenous peoples versus native peoples versus First Nations versus any other broad term used to classify a group of people in any context beyond indigenous peoples? And that's where the Venn diagram search can come in very handy. So what we can do is say we're looking for, we'll put in some terms that might cover the topics that we're interested in. So let's put in indigenous and native, and let's say literacy. And now what I can do is run that search. And the Venn diagram search is allowing me to see in a visual context how these terms relate to one another. And so you can see running down the right-hand side of the screen, we have almost 14,000 results covering those topics that I had previously searched for. It just looks like a regular result. On the left-hand side of the screen here, we see the term native. Now, native could be discussing a number of different topics, not just native peoples. But here we can see we have native and literacy and indigenous. And we can see here where the three of those overlap. But maybe I'm just most interested in this slice here that's discussing literacy and indigenous. And now we're more likely talking about indigenous peoples and their literacy struggles, or where literacy rates fall with indigenous peoples. Similarly, if I wanted to see how literacy and the term native relate to one another, I can click here, and now I'm looking at how the results where the terms literacy and native are found within those results. And what this allows you to do is easily jump between those search results and see, I'm interested in literacy, and I know that people may be discussing this particular group using the term native, or they may be discussing this group using the term indigenous. And this allows me to see both of those in a very easy, quick way. So that's a great way to use that Venn diagram search to kind of jump between those two different terminologies. All right, so let's go back, and we're going to look at another search example quickly, and then we're actually going to jump into the main indigenous peoples database. So let me just click here. I'll take a couple minutes if you're interested. I'm going to go into our journals database, because what I want to do, I want to explain to you our Pathfinder searching and how you can use that in an effective way when you are searching for topics regarding indigenous peoples. So what our Pathfinder searching is, it's found within our journals database and across some of our government documents. 1,500 subjects that every single article within HeinOnline has been categorized into, and at least one topic, often multiple subjects. And here I am in the browsing of the Law Journal Library. I want to click on Pathfinder subjects here, and that will jump us into kind of show you the hierarchy of our Pathfinder subjects. So we basically look at Pathfinder subjects both in a text hierarchy and a graphical. I will show you the text first of all. You can see we have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main topics: social sciences, natural formal sciences, industries, humanities, and of course applied sciences. We can open all of these and expand them all so we can see all the different topics that are included within this hierarchy. And of course, the one we are all most interested in and discussing right now is Indigenous peoples, which are here. And I'm going to do a Control F, not so we don't waste time here. Indigenous, oops. And there we go. Under race, ethnicity, and culture, we have Indigenous peoples, as well as cultural practices and property, burial. These are other topics that could, in some ways, impact or be related to Indigenous peoples. Now, of course, what I'm going to do is Indigenous peoples, and what it's going to show you is all different articles that we have that have a specific Pathfinder subject.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Someone was just saying that the audio is breaking up, and to notify you about that. So you just might want to repeat things here and there and so forth.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm also, what I also did is I stopped my video. That might help with the audio a little bit. So I'm sorry about that. And Steve, if it continues to break up, just let me know. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the Pathfinder subject for Indigenous peoples, and what this is showing you is we have over 5,000 articles that have the topic, at least the topic of Indigenous peoples associated with it. And what that allows you to do is it effectively creates a smaller subset of articles that we can search within. So, for example, we have here, I'm going to show you how I would go about doing it. So I'm going to go to the advanced search here. And you can see here right on the advanced search, it's a search by Pathfinder subject. So let's say that I want to do, I'm interested in incarceration and poverty rates within the Indigenous population. So I'm going to put in Indigenous and text for poverty. And let me first run that search without limiting it to the Pathfinder subject of Indigenous peoples. Let that run for just a moment. And you can see we have over 30,000 results. Now I'm jumping back quickly. Give that a moment to load. And I still have my Indigenous and poverty. And now I want to limit that to just Indigenous peoples. So these are now articles that will have the topic of Indigenous peoples within them. And that is our search set. We let that load up, and now look, we've reduced that search, those result volumes from 30,000 results down to just over 1,000 results. And what it allows us to do now is we are looking at a much more concentrated result set for topics that are related specifically to Indigenous peoples from the start, And then we can filter that down to one's topics that we're discussing: Indigenous peoples, poverty, and or if we want to put it in incarceration or something along those lines. So that's yet another search feature. Now let me jump into Indigenous peoples in the Americas quickly. And again, as I've mentioned previously, much of this material is related specifically to America and government documents within America, but what it allows you to do is it gives you some context on how the United States government has in the past and is currently working with the Indigenous peoples of America, how our legislation has changed over time. Here you can see we have 45 legislative histories. So these are federal legislative histories that cover everything from the initial bill that goes, the initial document that proposes a law, all the way through to the final act that gets signed by our president. These are legislative histories that occur over time. So you can see how thoughts and opinions change over time. Of course, we have as we discussed, our federal regulations regarding Native peoples, our federal laws regarding Native peoples. We have 26 serial titles in here. These are all related specifically to Native populations and Indigenous peoples. Some are more specific, but you can see some of these are American Indian Law Newsletter, American Indian Law Review, Court of Claims, decisions of the Department of Interior, and so on. Constitutions, acts, and bylaws. So these are constitutions, acts, and bylaws of various nations, Native American nations across the United States. The United States has many Native populations with a nation. The United States is over 3,000 miles wide. We have thousands upon thousands of Native populations across our nation, and many of them are covered here. Of course, the Government Accountability Office reports, Congressional Research Service reports, nearly 1,500 hearings regarding Native populations, Indian tribal codes from Indian nations across the United States. You can see here, you can browse by edition and browse by tribe. Indigenous Peoples Treaties, so these are treaties between nations, between the United States and so on. Supreme Court briefs, so many of these are amicus briefs from Native American populations to the United States Supreme Court, covering many different topics. Of course, all of this material is fully searchable within HeinOnline, full text searchable. We have treaty-related publications and other related works. And then finally, of course, the LibGuide. These are put together for you, our user. They are there for you to take material from, share with your patrons, share with your other librarians. This LibGuide covers how to go about browsing the database. We have search tips and tricks, additional resources for you researching Native populations, related HeinOnline blog posts, and much more. So we always encourage all of our users to take a look at this and extract everything that they can use from our LibGuides, as well as the database in general. So with that being said, it's been just about a half hour. I do appreciate everyone coming and joining us again for this latest webinar. Hey, Steve, do we have any questions that I could answer quickly?
I don't see any questions in the chat. We did have the one question about the sound, but there are no,
okay.
We answered it, so I don't see anything.
Excellent. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for attending. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Just as a reminder, we will not be having a HeinOnline webinar in December because of the holiday times. Everyone gets very busy. So we will see you again in January. We hope everyone has a wonderful end of the year, and have a safe holiday season, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day.